dead bodies in the streets, and they weren't allowed to bury them, touch them, or anything like that. It was just like, they would just decompose, and it was just that sort of thing. And they would go in hiding for like a long period of time. Like there'd be a lot of shooting, and they would just be in hiding. There was like a lot of food insecurity.
Yeah.
Lack of medical attention. Like I think
Well, you know why that happens, right? That's because we put sanctions on a country so that
Exactly.
people get so desperate that they lash out at their government. It's the fucking I'm going to end up getting kicked off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Yeltsin Penado, my good buddy with the Russian name from Guatemala. How did that happen?
Or El Salvador.
Oh, you're Salvadorian?
Yes.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all the same. No, I'm kidding. Is there a lot of Russian sympathy, like growing up because of the Soviet Union, or is that not related at all?
Probably. I was born in 1990, and my parents just really liked it. I think they just liked that name. It was in the news a lot because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and
yeah, Boris Yeltsin's an interesting guy to get named after.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, he's pretty interesting. I feel like, I don't know, there is kind of like socialist.
Well, I mean, like Central America is really big with that. So that's why that's why my brain went that way. But,
No, you're right.
But I've been wrong before. My grandfather's name is Israel, and I don't think we are actually Jewish. But that's been the myth in our family for a long time, that we were converted. Well, cool, man. So then, I met you through the Artist Collective, right? Or with the Artist Co-op, right? Because
Yes.
I interviewed some people down there. One of them was your partner, but we are not overshadowing you with their name just yet.
We could.
Okay. So then you grew up in LA. When did you start getting into art? Like, what's your art origin story?
It's kind of weird. I think, to be like an artist like now, that came to me as like in college, really. Like growing up, I was pretty creative. Like I played in the dirt a lot. I made a lot of things, and I had this neighbor who, like, my parents would just work all the time, and I had this neighbor who would take care of us, and she was an artist. She was like a painter, and she would take us out, and like me and my brother, and she would teach us like piano, and she would take us to like book fairs. We went to the opening of the Getty with her, and like it was just like really lucky experience to like live next to someone who like was like retired and could take care of us, and then was also like a creative. And
so it sounds like you defaulted into a nanny, into a Mary Poppins.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, she was from Kansas. She'd never seen the ocean before.
Wow.
Like never seen like a diverse community like LA, and she like one of my fond memories of just being a child was she took us out and we did like observational drawing, like kind of like plein air painting, and that's always just been a hobby ever since. So like I guess like in high school I kind of did like creative writing and stuff, and I was doodling here and there, but it took me a pretty long while. Like there was a big like narrative arc for me to like actually.
Oh yeah. I got a D in my high school art class, by the way.
Exactly.
It was only one semester, but I did get a D. And I think about that sometimes, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea. But cool. Then how do you identify? You're mostly like in medium wise. Are you a painter? I've seen paintings. I don't know if that's what you do. You like. Is that your main?
Yeah, I mean, by trade, I guess I went to school for painting, but I've mainly settled into like sort of video animation. That sort of thing.
Are you still? Is it like drawing animation, or like are you painting the stuff, or is it like Maya? Is it is it 3D?
Yeah, it's a lot of 3D stuff, but inspired a lot by like painting and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a lot of like I do a lot of sometimes animation that's just like pictures, or like maybe it's just video put together, or filmmaking. But
But you didn't go to CalArts or anything like that. It's not the CalArts School of Animation, which people on Reddit seem to hate, apparently.
Yes, which I've looked into. They have like layers of like animation, and well, also it's like I'm not trying to work for a studio. It's so there's a lot of that sort of stuff. But yeah, like mostly like 3D animation, machinima type of work.
Machinima, what's that?
Machinima is like it's like if you think of like I don't know, an example to hang on to probably is like Red versus Blue, kind of like someone using a video game to.
Damn, bro, that's so old. Red versus Blue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I tried to go back. I tried to go back and watch it. It's unwatchable, but yeah, for the time it was actually pretty dope. But I get what you're saying. So like you are you're not taking the real world. You're like taking other things and editing it into a new context.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, are you using specific tools like Maya and that kind of thing? Or like what do you?
I do like I start out with like a lot of Blender, a lot of Unreal Engine.
Blender's that free one, right?
Yes.
That's so crazy. There's like a whole new, because I see that on YouTube popping up all the time, and like so it's basically like a ZBrush Maya type thing.
Yeah, it's just that you can sculpt, you can edit videos, you can animate, and do AI stuff, I guess, and I don't know, whatever people make for it.
What makes you use what's it called? The other one that you said, the one that other people hate, After Effects. You said After Effects, right? Or no?
No, I've used After Effects.
Okay. No, what was the other one you said?
Unreal Engine.
Oh, okay. So you're working in like video game like spaces.
Yeah.
To what end? I haven't seen any of this stuff. I've only seen the painting stuff.
Yeah, it's like kind of I don't know. I feel like I've been doing it like here and there, and then last year I had kind of like from October to December-ish, like I kind of had like a slump when I was like moving. It was just really hard to like get into the studio and that sort of thing. So recently it's like I'm going all in on just like a film.
Like feature length or short?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, and then it's like I think maybe this might be the medium to do it. So yeah, I think. How did I get into that? I have no clue.
I mean, it's such an interesting thing that like that's a technology. I've talked to a few people that are using it, but like for fine art means. I mean, not that like that's a like exclusive to that, but I'm just saying because of the way that I interview people and the type of people I interview, a lot of people are just playing with the technology, not in the like you said, corporate space or working for a studio space, but sort of like using the technology to explore new things. So it's interesting. I mean, like that's just a tool that it didn't even exist when I was a kid, right?
Exactly.
So, especially like a free version of a 3D sculpting tool. That's like insane.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there a lot of? Do you find? Are you consuming work from people that work in that space as like an influence?
Sometimes, yeah. I think sometimes it seems like people might be experimenting a lot. They like tinker a lot with like maybe video games or recording, and then of course there's just like YouTube and Twitch and like the people who like play video games and like that's just like what they do for a living or something. But there's a handful of artists that I've been kind of following where like they use video game engines to make an interactive experience or an animation or something like that. But
like gallery, pursuing people that are pursuing gallery careers.
Oh yeah,
that, like people doing the work in that context.
Yes, John Raffman is like probably like a cornerstone of that. It's like I don't know, like philosopher, PhD sort of dude that like what did he do? I think he went into a video game called Second Life and just made like a whole film called like I think it was like Kool-Aid Man or something like that. And he's like a Kool-Aid Man, and he's like it's about how people sort of like transcend reality, and they create these avatars, and it's kind of like who they really are, and then like kind of like sort of this online persona that people take on, and this is like early internet. This is like the 2000s sort of era. So like, you know, we've had decades.
That's like mid-internet.
It's like mid-internet. Yeah. That's
I'm just sorry. I was 15 when early internet AOL is early to internet. No, I'm teasing. And so then, like, what's the interface for people? Like, how do people consume your work? Like, your film, is it going to be something you watch with goggles? Is it something you can post on YouTube? That kind of thing? Like, because I've talked to people that make like VR experiences, put on glasses. I've talked to people that make work in the spaces, but then their end product is a 2D. So, like, where are you in that?
For a lot of my projects, it's like here and there. Like something that I've done is kind of like I've maybe developed an image and then I have it like printed on a vinyl banner, and then maybe that's like part of like the installation piece where there's like grommets and it's strung on something like a sign, like an open sign or something like that.
So a sculptural, but like with 2D elements on them?
Yeah.
Okay.
That, and then just for this one, it's more like
for the
just
future.
viewing.
Yeah, so it's just going to be like a screen consumption. Interesting. And like, do you find that there's like, that your professors are equipped to teach you this stuff? Not that you're in school, but like, sounds like it's a lot of self-taught stuff. This doesn't strike me as something that like you go to college and like somebody with tenure is going to be like, let me tell you, I'm an expert on how to use this in the art context.
Right. I think, in college, at least for me, it was like mostly they were teaching you how to kind of like make a body of work or like a narrative, and kind of composition.
But they didn't give you these tools. These are tools you selected?
Yeah. Like,
so then that was you said you were trained as a painter.
Yes. Yeah.
So then the bulk of your training was in the medium of painting, and now you're transitioning into this other space.
Yeah, I mean, I took like a filmmaking class and like video like on my way out of school, and like it was mostly like I knew like some people who had recently graduated, and they were just like learn something that you could take into a work environment. And of course that's like the first thing I did when I got a job out of school was to like teach video. But it was like I was interested in it a little bit. Like I was interested in sort of 3D modeling. I had sculpture teachers that I kind of talked to, and I was exposed to things like animation and experimental film and those sort of things, where it was I was really budding by the time I got out of school with that.
What are your main areas of interest? Like, do you have specific things that interest you idea wise, conceptually? Are you like, what did you grow up consuming that like maybe influences you now?
Yeah, I think a lot of influences is like I spent a lot of time growing up in El Salvador. Like, so
so you did grow up. ¿Hablas español?
Sí.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
you're a real one then. No.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I just come from a place where it was a lot of first generation Cubans, so we all spoke Spanish.
Yeah,
I guess there's probably generations that don't speak any Spanish.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's I think the other day there was like a woman that like was surprised that I was like speaking Spanish to her, and she was just like, "Don't lose it," like
Yeah, it's the abuelitas. How did you end up? So what ages were you in El Salvador? San Salvador or where?
Like Usulutan, which is kind of like more to the southern end, I would say. But it's not that big of a country, anyways. It's like.
No, but it's had plenty of like fighting and stuff.
It's big.
No, there's like been like a lot of turmoil there. No.
Yeah.
When was the last war? I'm not that well versed on Salvadoran history.
Oh, so it's like I could describe it as probably like it was. So it was like a big civil war that lasted for decades, probably, and it was like
around when did it end?
I'm gonna say like the 90s, or if it ended. Like it's something like that.
There's the Susan Meiselas book. I think she might also have gone to Salvador, but she goes to Nicaragua and she shoots all the Civil War there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's some really nice photographs. Probably some of the stuff that she's done that I like the best. But it's interesting. I mean, like all of that. It's so funny growing up. You especially like as a Cuban, I grew up with all these ideas of like. Latin American dictators and stuff being socialist, and I'm like, there's one.
Right.
And he's dead. Everybody else, like anytime you have like a coup, it's all usually a US backed like
exactly
right wing coup. Like they don't want leftists down there. So it's really interesting how like the Woody Allen movie. What's it called? Banana Republic. I need to watch that again.
Oh yeah.
But it's
It's
like
true.
based on this very narrow concept of like so all right, so what are the two sides, do you know, in El Salvador?
I mean, there's like a socialist side, and then there's obviously like a Western side. It seems like it's like a proxy war, maybe, just like, like anything else, where it's like there's a lot of funding going to different places, and only one can survive. But there's FLMN, I think, is the
Fuck my
pseudo,
life.
yeah, right. I don't know. It's like the pseudo communist group that
uh
in the area, and there's still like posters and stuff like everywhere. It's
yeah.
like it hasn't died at all. But I know that I don't really know much about the sort of Western backside, but it seems like they may have won or something.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to.
Yeah,
We have all of Honduras down there as a staging ground, and it like Honduras is kind of becoming an open air prison. I don't want to bum us out.
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, so El Salvador, that's where you guys had El Mozote. That's like the Iran Contra stuff, right? That's like not just any small.
Yeah, and I mean,
Like it's tied to crack in the U.S. So it's like it is like
yeah.
a part of American history that people just are like, oh no, that happened in El Salvador.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even today, there's the Bitcoin, I don't know, whatever. The current president is like arresting people in just droves for having tattoos and stuff, and
Really?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
that's crazy. Do you? Yeah, man. Like, how do you guys talk about El Mozote? Is that like part of the I mean, that's a pretty brutal, like for people that don't know, that was like, they were throwing, like it was American funded Contras that were basically raping and killing people, throwing babies up in the air and catching them on bayonets, which is like, I know I know we hear a lot about like babies in incubators when we get American propaganda, but like that actually happened.
yeah,
Like it was really, really, really brutal. And who was it? I forget. It was one of the longtime assholes in American government whose job was to like cover it up. I forget who it was. I read all this stuff and then it kind of trickles through me. But yeah, man. Do you like, what are your ties to home?
I think it's. I mean, I have a lot of. I feel like my aunt, I feel like my parents never really tell me that much. Like
Yeah.
they came here like in the '70s, like late '70s, like early '80s. But my aunt came here like 2000s or like late 90s.
Hmm.
So and I connected with her a lot, and she was like very candid about a lot of this stuff, and was uh, dead bodies in the streets, like and they weren't allowed to bury them, touch them, or anything like that. It was just like they would just decompose, like, and it was just that sort of thing, and they would go in hiding for like a long period of time. Like there'd be a lot of shooting, and they would just be in hiding. There was like a lot of food insecurity,
Yeah.
lack of medical attention. Like I think my
Well, you know why that happens, right? That's because we put sanctions on a country so that
exactly.
people get so desperate that they lash out at their government. It's the fucking like it. I'm gonna end up getting kicked
It's
off of YouTube.
yeah, it's
But what's it called? So then, when were you there? So you were born what year were you born?
I was born 1990.
So and then you were there for from when to when?
Well, I was born here, but I spent like probably I don't know, like 3 or 4 months a year, maybe even longer.
Okay, so you were
Like
just regularly visiting.
yeah, yeah,
Like, yeah. That, I mean, that still like gives you a sense, especially if you go to a place where like you're on the outs. Like going to Italy for me as a kid is different than you going to El Salvador, where like Italy is a NATO country.
yeah. Right.
And El Salvador, you see the helicopters, and you see the war machine stuff. What was it like? Like what were kids into when you were going back there?
Like American culture, it felt like just like probably a snapshot in time of just like farmland, no internet, no phones. It's like if you met someone, it would be at a time, at a
Yeah.
place, like things like that, and everything's a lot slower there. And then people wouldn't go out at night. Like it was
It's
just
just
too
not
dangerous.
not safe.
Yeah.
What's dangerous over there? Just
Like
pandillas?
yeah, like traveling in a car or like I did see people who had been deported, like gangsters and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And my cousins are just like, don't look, don't make any sudden movements, anything, just like that sort of stuff. And you would see it in every community. You'd see big like MS tags everywhere, and
What's an MS tag?
it's like Mara Salvatrucha, which is like just this big like gang that started here in LA, but then like so many were sent to like El Salvador to kind of
Yeah.
like deported there, and it just continued, and then it's like a place where it's unregulated uh to do illegal things.
Is it the kind of thing where you have like is it it's not narco, is it?
It's
Is
like that.
it
It's like that.
but that's not like I think most of that all that is in Mexico now or no?
It's
In the
like
90s maybe more so, but
yeah, I think it's like they participate in like human trafficking because it's like it's the
that is
middle of the
true.
road.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah. Human trafficking in Latin American countries is huge. Labor trafficking, especially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not just sex trafficking, which is awful too.
Yeah.
But labor trafficking is pretty crazy. I forgot. I recently heard about somebody that was like that freed themselves because they were held as a blood donor, like slave.
What?
Like, America's so nicely protected under the pillows of death. Um, so then, like, what's your take on American culture? Like, where do you feel like you fit in? How do you feel about like what do you like about it? What do you reject about it? What do you like? Are you caught up in American politics? Are you not? Like,
Yeah.
are you like do you find yourself frustrated with the left over here, or are you like, yo, you guys got it?
That's a good question.
We don't have to talk about specific politicians because that gets a little tedious. But like in terms of the left over here, there's no anti-war movement, right? And that like affects us directly. I would like us to not sanction people. It just feels like our whole attitude towards everybody is like, yeah, we're friends until you do something we don't like.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, what part of American culture resonated with you growing up? Like, were you a skater? Were you what?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we didn't grow up with like a lot of money, so it was kind of like I did like it's like growing
Oh,
up
that's
in
right.
the
Culver
90s.
City has not always been.
Yeah, it's like
Culver
not.
City.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like skating is like really cool. Like hip hop music, I think is something that like I really got into like early on, and video games, cartoons, and like that sort of stuff. And of course, art is something that is like I'm kind of like into it, but it's like I was more influenced by it.
Do people acknowledge or recognize you as a like? I hate to use the term white passing, but I find like in California, a lot of people police the degree to which you're white. And do people like just tell you that you don't look Salvadorian in the most racist way possible?
Yeah. Like either most of the time, unless I say something, or like I don't know.
Well, you mentioned that people are surprised.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes people are pretty surprised. They're like, "Oh, I thought you were just a random dude," or something.
Where do
like
people usually think you're from? Like what?
Russia. Sometimes if they see my name, Russia, or
I could see it actually. Now that you say that, yeah. Russians not as white as people think they are. They're not. They're
That's
not
true.
Anglo.
That is very true. Yeah.
Cool, man. So then, what is your main hustle out here? Like, what is your main objective in the art scene? Are you trying to like get into like gallery representation? Do you have like how do you frame your hustle? Is your art practice strictly for the pleasure of having an art practice? Are you trying to get like some level of success, notoriety? Like, what are your ambitions in this space?
I don't know. At first, it's like when I was in school, it's like it felt like pipe dream type stuff where it was just like I would love to, show in a cool gallery or like something like that. But then it's like, then I realized that it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like when you really want that stuff, you make it happen. And then there's times where it's kind of like it comes to you when you just do stuff. And I think it's like if I focus on like social media and constantly posting like things, then that's like what I'm focusing on rather like than the work itself or something like that. So I think I've taken a step back from those sort of things like social media and then like open calls and that sort of stuff, and mostly just trying to focus on my work at this point, where it's kind of like if someone sees the significance and really enjoys this stuff, it'll happen, and it kind of does. It's naturally kind of like boiled up for some people where they really like this stuff, or like it's niche enough for them. Or
So what are you doing, like studio visits, or like how are you grinding and getting people? Are you just in a making cycle?
I'm like in a making cycle, but I got a YouTube, and like a lot of followers that they just watch it. Like I don't know.
What are you posting? Just your video stuff, or?
Yeah, a lot of it is just like video stuff and like barely any description or any of that sort of stuff. And it's some of it people I've watched, some of it people like are really into. Like there's like a lot of
some shit just goes dead on.
yeah.
You'll think you're doing well on YouTube and you've got it, and you're like, oh no, that's not what it was.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, it's like it's weird because it started out kind of separate. It was kind of like, oh, like I'll play video games and do this like while I'm in college, you know, and I'll just make videos or whatever. And then
what year did you graduate?
What year?
Yeah.
2018.
And you
not
went
too long ago.
Where'd you go?
Otis.
5 years is a long time ago.
Yeah.
5 years, your 5-year plan is up.
That's very true. I did accomplish everything on that list, though.
Then you know what my father would say. No, my father wouldn't say it. He said you didn't put enough on that list.
That's true.
That's cool. So then you're mostly in the Otis scene. Those are the artists that you kind of work with, or like what is your social scene? Like, you're not doing open calls. Are you like going and networking at shows? I'm just curious as to how, like, where you fit in, because you and May are a little bit outside of my circle, so I'm trying to figure out how you guys fit in. Mm-hmm. I know that May has the what's the place that she works at?
She works at
the print shop.
Yeah, Josephine Press and LMU, and she's teaching at Otis as well.
Yeah. Are you teaching? Do you have a MFA or a BFA?
I have a BFA.
BFA, and then from Otis. Cool. Yeah. So then, 2018. I'm trying to figure out who I know from that recently, because I know a bunch of people from Otis. It's not a bad place. I mean, the community is pretty tight, like in terms of like people. How do you feel about like alums helping you out and stuff like that? Is that something that kind of?
I try to be someone that helps out other people in whatever way and collaborating in that sense. I feel like I still get invited to a lot of stuff. It's like, you know, a lot of people that I graduated with are having shows or screenings or like concerts at a venue. So it's like, it's interesting kind of seeing everybody evolve and kind of, you know, take on a new practice or just evolve on their practice and do that sort of thing. I've stayed close with a handful of people, and definitely a few professors. Like, you know, I'll go to their shows and stuff like that.
But what I mean is like, because I know that in CSUN, like it's insanely like the alums are like, I met everybody that I know that's like a recent grad. I met through somebody that is an alum, right? Like Emily Blythe Jones and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how like, because I would say, I mean, Otis is not a small school, but I would say definitely, and CSUN is not, it's a UC anyway, also, right? Like it's UC Northridge. But I would say that they kind of fall in that like community, like it's not like a UCLA or a USC where if someone applies for a show here at USC, I'm like, do they really need this show?
That's true.
Like, is this space really for them? Because, you know, I don't know that I don't know. I'm kidding. We've had USC people here. I'm throwing shade because they're slowly taking over my neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
With the the Keck Medical Center, like they're trying to turn it into like the Disney-fied, you know, like how the USC campus is like.
It's nice. I've seen the one downtown here at the Arts.
It's not nice. It's Disneyland.
That's true.
It's like it's simulacra of a campus. I think that like
Nice.
I don't know how old it must be pretty old, but I just feel like when you go to UCLA, the campus is a little bit like feels a little bit more like a college campus
Yeah.
and a little bit less like
definitely.
Disney.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But anyway, now that we've done the college campus tour for everybody, do you have a professional strategy of like how you get like for anybody listening, you know, you grew up in LA, so you know you've kind of been here long enough. It takes a while to like really establish a routine. Like, what is your avenue forward? You know, what are you thinking of in terms of your career ambitions? Is it like, say you're done with your cycle, like what are you trying to be a gallery guy? You've got the YouTube channel, so that you could kind of go either way, and not that you can't do both, but I'm just curious, like in terms of plans. You've been out of school 5 years, like do you have like a new like way forward that you're thinking?
I think.
Or are you well, no? Because some people like we haven't talked. Do you have a day job that are you trying to just like balance it out with a day job and facilitate the art practice, or are you trying to be an exclusive art practice artist that doesn't do anything, makes millions of dollars laundering money?
Yes.
To both?
No. Well, I have a day job. I'll start there. Day job. 40 hours a week, full-time job. I'm a program manager for a arts nonprofit in
Okay.
Venice. Yeah.
What's it
And-
called? Can we plug it or?
Yeah. Rediscover Center.
Okay.
Some people may have heard of it. I don't know.
And what does it do?
We take recycled materials like trash and I don't know, cardboard, like a bunch of stuff like that, and we turn it into art and other things with either children or adults. We provide like tool training for people that have never done woodworking, and it's kind of here and there. Like, but my specialty there, like what I do is I go into LAUSD schools. And I bring like maker education, so it's kind of like art and engineering.
So
with
do
tools.
you do Arduinos and stuff like that? Raspberry Pis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we don't, but like sometimes we do.
Yeah.
But
It's in that maker space. Like not, it doesn't necessarily have to have a integrated circuit involved, but like you're teaching kids this kind of stuff. Is there coding involved ever or no?
It used to be. Like I've been working in STEM for like 7 years ish, and I used to teach coding and graphic design and video and all that stuff. But this is more hands on. Like this is real, like tool use, and it's also what's cool is it's a nonprofit, so it's like we're in like Willowbrook, Watts, Compton, so like we're in like a lot of different like communities like in South LA. So like we're bringing a lot of like really cool stuff to a lot of different kids, and I think it's cool. I get to connect with kids and speak Spanish, and it's really cool. So I have a lot of fun doing it.
How old are you?
I am 32,
32.
turning 33 this year.
I started coaching kids when I was your age. I hate them now.
Nah. There we go. We'll see in 5 years now.
No, I hate to be a cynic, but okay. So then, so you said you were like, so then what like, do you have any insights for people on how to like hustle the scene? Anything that people might not know that you are privy to?
Yes.
Like YouTube, it sounds like you might even have more followers than me. I'm just new to that game. How do you feel like about that? Are you any ambitions to monetize or continue that? Because if you don't have rights issues if you're making the content yourself, right?
It's pretty much. It's like there's stuff that I don't really use. There's like Vimeo stuff, where it's like you do get like a lot of control over how it gets displayed and where you can post it and who can see it and those sort of things.
Oh wait, so you are concerned about limiting people?
In the past, like maybe it's like I want to release this just to like a film committee before this is like just on YouTube for everyone to see or something like that, or I don't know, or keep things private, I guess, for however long, or keep things just like these are art pieces, like these are all just art pieces, like in the Vimeo neighborhood or something like that, instead of like where YouTube, it's like I have kind of like a mix of like this one's like a tutorial or like this one's like kind of something different, or but
have you ever thought of niching down into something? What would it be?
Like a lot of the machinima stuff is really kind of like a niche. I mean, there's like, I don't know, there's layers. I mean, there's like the umbrella of just like you're making videos on a computer, and then there's like video game stuff, and then there's stuff that you're directing and it's kind of like fake on a video game level, and then there's like just subgenres that go lower, deeper and deeper and deeper. So well, what's interesting is like now that we're speaking of like niche, it's like I've taken on to like where I saw this thing on YouTube, and it was called like the 5-month war. Like that's just what the video was called, and it was like a video game, obviously. And I was like, 5 months, like what is that? And I saw that this person had basically made their own video game where it's like they are the leader of like a guerrilla group, and they are in charge of like the politics. They are in charge of like sending people out to their demise. They're in charge of overthrowing towns and governments, and it's like a first-person shooter, by the way. So it's like it's even like more visceral.
But it's not interactive. It's staged within the video game, right?
It's like staged within the video game. You could bring other people in, or you could play alone. So it's like this whole thing, and I was like, how does this take 5 months though? Like, it's like usually a typical video game is beat in like 8 hours or something. You could sit in one day, but people will do it in stages and then beat it. So I was like, this is cool. And so there's this game called Arma 3. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a genre of video games that are called military simulation. So it's like, it's not like Call of Duty. It's more like your guy gets tired and then he has to lay down for a little bit, or like he gets shot and he dies instantly because that's what happens in the real world. So there's people who make, or what drew me to this was CNN used footage from that video game and called it real.
Oh yeah, I think that was for the Ukraine stuff, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of like really simulated, like they simulate physics, they simulate like the way the army troops move and stuff like that. So I have been using that software to kind of do like a lot of different like character design. Like I've learned how to kind of code within that video game to kind of like learn how to kind of make things appear or disappear, and like it's really interesting to me. So in that genre, there's people who make films of like, oh, like these are people that are rescuing, like, and there's no bounds too, by the way. So it's like there's like Marines in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban, like in the Afghan National Army. So
what's the game called again?
Arma 3.
Arma 3, okay.
And people, what draws a lot of people to it is that the community makes things for it. So there's no bounds to it. So it's like if they want to do like a Salvadorian like guerrilla battle, like you could do that, and make the environment and make like the characters do whatever you want them to do, and even choose
just do a reenactment and traumatize people.
Basically, yeah, yeah. And of course, there's even like a war crime like addition that you could purchase to this, and I find it really interesting as like a piece of technology. It's kind of like it's 10 years old, so it's been like developed like a lot, and it's interesting. It's interesting that it falls within this genre of people that want to kind of like, they want to fight in a war, but they're sitting on their couch in their PJs. Like there's like a lot of that sort of like really interesting sort of like dynamic to what people are doing with this like this game or like these types of technology, where they're like, it's like a cathartic experience, but like they are, they probably have like a desk job, but then like they go home at night and they're like a warlord, or like,
Well, what I'm interested in is the machisma. What is it?
Oh, the machinima, yeah.
Machinima. So it's machine cinema. Is that?
Yes.
It's a combination of those two words. What is it about it that is so fascinating to you? Because what I would think is that maybe that, like, for example, Blue vs. Red is not necessarily accessible to anybody that isn't into like at least Halo, know? So you're just fascinating. Like there's an audience for it, obviously, right? So is that, Are you interested in bringing machinima people into the space and exposing them to it, or are you just happy living in the machinima community? Like what? Because it literally sounds like something that doesn't come up, like a rabbit hole that doesn't come up on my YouTube algorithm at all. So it's algorithmic, but like we're talking about niches. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with niching specifically to that. But I guess my question is, once you start, like, does the community recognize art as a separate entity to like narrative film? Does it have subgenres? Because you mentioned layers, right?
Yeah.
Like how does that work? Like are there other artists like you that make art for each other in this space?
It's very small.
There's
There's an annual film festival called the Machinima Film Festival in Milan. So it's European. So like it's already like not in America. So it's and I feel like also video gaming across the world is different. Like it's seen as a very serious thing in Europe, where like in America it's like associated with lazy people or like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So to elevate something that's like for lazy people, I personally think is like no one else is doing it. I mean, some people are, and I do see, and I really resonate with the people who are, and they're using technology. Because there's some people that they use technology, but it's like they're coding or like they're doing like something completely separate. So I think to tell a story with or to create like a narrative with something that's kind of like esoteric, like there's already kind of like some backstory to like, I don't know, like Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty or something like that. But then to flip the script a little bit and turn it into something a little more meaningful and to add like more depth to things like that, I think that's my end goal with like a lot of like using that as like a medium to tell stories and to compose things, because a lot of it too is like I'll have two computers set up where maybe I'm acting on one of them and maybe like using AI and like a microphone and changing my voice so I can be like multiple actors.
Or you could theoretically cast a bunch of people to join a server and then they all play the parts.
Exactly, yeah. And then that could be my camera guy, and that could be like, so.
And then the Second Life, the person that made the work on Second Life, that guy's considered an artist, right? That's not a subculture.
No.
Okay.
So
what was
he's
his
someone
name
who, John Raffman.
Does he make other kind of work that helps bridge the gap between this very niche stuff into? Okay, so
Yeah.
what kind of, like, is he conceptual in basis,
Yeah.
or is it narrative form? Okay.
It's all like conceptual. Like some of it is like he did like a dream journal, and it's like a series of work where he just animated every dream that he had, and a lot of it is just very like you should look it up. Some of it's really good, like on Ubu and stuff like that. But it's like the Second Life one is the really popular one. But I'm trying to think of a few other artists. There's like someone else who used like Shadow of Colossus.
For people that don't know, Second Life is metaverse before metaverse.
Yeah.
and it's still way ahead of it.
Yeah.
They have
20
legs.
years ago. Like, yeah.
I know. I signed up for it and I was like, okay, this is kind of dull. Because you would just go into these spaces and like people build some random ass shit, and you're like, okay. I mean, it's cool that you meant it. Like, I don't know. Minecraft is mind blowing to me, like how people get so into it and all of that. But it does seem like it's. I mean, I'm sure there's a machinima about Minecraft. There has to be.
Oh, yeah,
It would be crazy. What about stuff like Roblox and things like that? Have you ever thought of making like? Is it how does that work? Is that like coding? Because I know that like that's like a really scam heavy. I mean, I'm trying to get you to run a scam.
Yes. I
know it's different, but like, is there? I don't know. I mean, I guess this is so out of my realm that I have to connect it to something I know.
No, I used to teach game design, and Roblox was like the free one that anyone could use. It's 3D, and the language is Lua, so it's the same language as Photoshop, so really easy to pick up, and. Yeah, I made a lot of projects on Roblox, actually. Some of them made me money. Like, it's like there's monetization on there and stuff like that. But it's been a while. I should dust off the account before it gets deleted or something. But
Do you feel like it's possible to make art on a platform like Roblox?
I know one artist, from, I think, Cal State Long Beach. I follow him, and he I think he builds worlds and photographs in them.
Okay.
Something
So
like
then
that.
ultimately the work exists outside of the space.
I think for him, yeah.
Do you know of anybody that makes art for the art, like capital A art world, that works with the machinima or anything like that, without like that invites an event, like invites you to join that community, takes people out of the like the art gallery space, but puts them into like that. Is there something like that going on? Maybe.
I'm like 50-50 on those because like the pandemic, I feel like paved the way for a lot of people to normalize that, and then now you're seeing virtual art galleries with virtual pieces in them and
Well,
NFTs and
I get what you're saying,
yeah.
but separate from that, I want to be in the space. Like I'm curious about people like me who have no idea how would we access and get awareness of something like this, like without it being a print in a gallery.
Right.
Like I mean, not that you have to have the answer, but is there anybody that is like, hey guys, hey art people that don't really know, you can sign in here and check this out. Does this stuff like that happens, or is it just so community driven that?
Very short. I think it's much easier to take a snapshot of it and present it to someone.
Yeah.
And even it's kind of like taking a work of art out of a studio and putting it in a space to breathe and to look at and to understand. Because then once it's in the gallery or on a screen or something like that, it's like then you can begin to remove it from like, oh, this is a video game. Because like once you've told a good story or you've composed it or you've cropped it or like anything like that, it's like you start to forget.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that you feel like it needs to be put in an art context for it to read as art. It's very difficult to make it art within its own context.
Yeah, because there's just so many like there's so many people that appreciate it in a different way. Like people that aren't like academically driven.
Well, but I mean, I'm not so much worried in the way people read it. As long as they read it as art, maybe they don't understand the art. But like, does that happen? Do like, because it's crazy. I mean, I do think that people nowadays are at a place where they understand postmodernism, at least on an intuitive sense. Yeah. That like they may not know the definition of it, but they know what it means. I think most people have an internal sense of postmodernism and understanding of what that is. Yeah. So I'm wondering if we could ever get to a place where like that becomes an art space, and it is declared an art space as opposed to having to, because I mean like that, I mean that's just kind of the challenge, the mental challenge that I've come up with myself, because it seems like no one's been able to really think of a way of doing it. But it is interesting because I know somebody else, with the Thinking About Thinking episode with Renee Forrest, who's from Montreal. She does stuff, and people are always telling her that they want to be able to explore the space. Mm-hmm. So there is something that is taken away when you put it in the art context, right? Like you can't roam the space, or you can't experience the space firsthand. Mm-hmm. Like it's the artist, like there's a gatekeeper element to it that I think persists when you have to put it in an art space. So the idea, so it's interesting. I wonder, I mean, like the internet is still pretty young. Like, so who knows in the future, right? What do you like? Could there be an NFT tie-in to something like this? Would blockchains be relevant to, or I mean, I guess you could maybe design an NFT that gets you access to certain shit like that,
There's one gallery. I think it's what's his name, Dr. Wu or something like that. I don't know if you heard of Epoch Gallery. They're from LA or something. Yeah, they just make NFTs and they get 3D artists or real artists and they curate it somehow. And then it's like an 8K VR experience where it's like you buy it, you get to experience it.
Yeah.
I am less interested in virtual experiences because I think in the context of like a lot of the people that I personally know aren't as willing to engage with like putting on like a VR headset or sitting down and doing that sort of thing. And especially if someone was like not even used to something like that. And I feel like a lot of my fans are more like they're into the cathartic experience, or like maybe they don't understand like the actual like art side of it, but like maybe they're just more into like just it is what it is, or like, oh, this is cool, like you're doing something that I'm into. Or
but you could conceivably make a LAN party inside this gallery space, and we could have just people put them on. You know, I mean, like, because I've been to spaces where you put on headsets, right?
Yeah.
And then what if there's like a performance of people that are not in the gallery space, but they're broadcasting in here, and you get to watch it as an audience? I'm just thinking of ideas, like, because, you know, I mean, I'm always, the gallery and overhead is great. You know, it's always nice to play a landlord. But I do also I'm interested in all these new technologies and how they might subvert the way that we as artists interact and commune with each other. And it sounds like there's a community element. So it seems like, I mean, I would like to imagine a sci-fi novel written by somebody like a William Gibson, like, you know, what's the one that he wrote that's based off of the All Tomorrow's Parties? That's based off of the Lou Reed song or whatever, the Velvet Underground. But yeah, the idea of these spaces becoming, I wonder, like, I think that there's like also an element of when you start doing these things virtually, there's always this surveillance element. So then there's got to be like a limitation on speech, you know, because you can't even print a shirt that a company doesn't want. You know, like you can't you can't make a shirt that says "fuck the police" on some of these places. So I don't know.
It's hard. I think digital stuff too. It's like if it's not like a physical object, you know, it's hard to hold on to in many ways.
Yeah, but I think that the idea of like a sensory experience, you know, is different than like, you know, a digital photograph. And like, you know, I mean, digital doesn't necessarily change the way that we consume movies, you know. I mean, it makes it more convenient, but like the actual interface of doing that, it's interesting. What do you, anything that is cool in this space that I don't know about that you might want to share with people? Because I don't think a lot of people are well versed in this Machinima, Unreal Engine, Red versus Blue. Like, I mean, I haven't really thought of anything like that since Red versus Blue.
Yeah, me neither, really. I mean, it's is it emerging? I don't think so. I think it's
no, I don't. Yeah, it's niche, but that doesn't make it not art, subject matter, or material.
I think it's cool to explore. I think it's like a lot of people play games. It's cool to make them. I think that's something that and it's becoming easier. You know, like Blender being free, and you know, a lot of these things just being very cheap, and components becoming cheaper, and that sort of thing. It's and especially in advancements with technology, using things like AI to animate. It's you know, a studio, like a whole room full of people is now just like a computer and one person. You know, and there's a lot of films that are being made that are just, you know, 2-3 people, very small, like teams. A lot of virtual production stuff, like The Mandalorian uses like camera tracking and big screens that are not green screens, and so there's a lot going on. It's really like what's coming in and how is AI kind of like mixing into all that stuff. That's like one of those things that's kind of like
by the way, what's your YouTube channel? Plug it so people can see some of this stuff. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Nah, it's fine. I'll just comment in the YouTube, and then the viewers they'll see it there.
You don't want to say it? Now I want to dig in deeper and find out why.
No, it's part of it is I have a lot of like what's the word, alter ego, or like kind of
shit that might get you canceled.
No, definitely not. But I have a lot of like different aliases, and what's funny about this one is it's gotten popular without it being me. And I really like that. I like that it's not me. It's someone else, and I can have like, at first, of course, it was like separate art practice, and I'm just doing this, and you know, this is something I'm doing at night, and then
nothing
it's like
is separate, my friend.
exactly. Then they blended, and it's kind of like, oh, like I have like this sort of natural following, and I've probably told like 5 or 6 people that they kind of know, and they're kind of like, and then some people kind of really understand. They're like, they watch every video and that sort of thing, but I'll just comment. I'll just comment or something like that.
You got to plug this show on your huge channel now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
No,
weird.
no, I'm saying you got to make a video sending people to
Here
this
we go.
show.
No, yes.
Or you should you can interview me as a machinima character.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool, man. No, I mean this is interesting stuff. I'd like it is such a niche thing, but I get what the interest is. You can scratch the surface of something, or you can dig deep into this like really niche thing where people are very much invested and care a lot about it. And so it's almost like you're walking into a world that already exists for you, and it's like I can see that being inspiring. I mean, so what was it? The name of the game that you're
Oh, Arma?
Arma.
Yeah.
And then like are there other ones that are popular like that have similar followings? Because I know Counter-Strike CS:GO gets modded a lot, but is there anything else? Like, are there any other huge places that breed a lot of machinima other than like Halo, the original?
Yeah. I think nowadays I'm seeing a lot of like there's a British artist that's doing like I'm trying to think. He's doing Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is the biggest one.
Yeah, I've seen
right
that.
now.
That is the stuff that I've seen.
Yeah.
You
like,
know, where you see people like acting out and whatnot, and acting as NPCs.
yeah, they role play. They have a whole full-time job. You know, they go pull people over as a police officer, like check their pockets, and then arrest them or something, and then they go home, turn off the computer, and then actually go home. That one's really popular. I know. I haven't messed around with it too much. People role play a lot, and I think what I like about Arma is that like it's kind of like just the premier military experience. Like that's just what it's marketed as. It's like it's literally just like the motto is "We send you to war."
And this is a 20-year-old game?
It's like 10 years old. I think it was released 2013.
No, the Second Life is 20 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, man. How did you stumble upon this shit? You just like it. Just do you have any? What was the video that like? Because sometimes I'll watch like lefty stuff on YouTube, and then because like now right wing people are like pro free speech or anti war, YouTube is like, oh, the people that watch this, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this culture war shit. I just want the economic and and anti imperialism. I don't want to like talk about how bad, I don't care about drag shows. It's not on the top of my thing. So what was like, what else were you into? Was it just like, did you go down a rabbit hole? How do you discover some shit like this that's so niche?
It gets even more niche. It's, so when I was in school, like college, like 2017, there's this game called Battlegrounds that came out. And it's like a fight to the death, basically. It's like you land with nothing, and then you pick stuff up, and then you fight each other. And it's teams, or you play alone, and then there can only be one at the end. And it's based off of a movie in Japan. It was this film that was banned in a lot of countries because they had children do it instead of like actual like players, like the real game. So it's basically Fortnite, but before Fortnite.
Okay.
So this game came out. I got super into it, and I was like, it was like I was painting and stuff, and then I'd go home and play video games, and I got really...
I cannot relate.
Yeah, I mean, so I got super into it, and I started playing with these people from Europe, actually, and like a lot. Like we're talking like Discord, like we would play like a lot, like all the time, and like thousands of hours. Like I'm not even kidding. Like it became like what I was doing for a really long time. And we played a lot, and distinctly like people from Switzerland, Netherlands, the UK. So it's like we ended up creating a clan. So we came up with this group of like around 50 people from all across the world, a couple American dudes, and we just got really into it. And towards the end, I joined this other group where they were playing like kind of like a realism like zombie experience, where it was like there's zombies, and then you survive, you drink water, use the bathroom, you eat, you You find weapons. And
like
then,
Rust, like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just survival. What's it called? What are those games called?
It's like the survival genre.
Yeah.
So it was a simulation game, but part of it, what really drew me to this like server and this community of people where you come up with a story, like a backstory, and then that's you, and you try to keep your person alive as long as possible. And that game is made by the same people that make Arma 3. So I was already kind of used to the format, and it was like, oh, this game's kind of cool. So then I shelved it, got a job, lived my life, and kind of was doing stuff here and there. And then I kind of came back to it, and I was like, oh, what's this like cousin game of like this one that I was playing a lot? And like I played it for like 5 seconds and was just like, this is dumb. Turned it off. And then I started seeing videos of it, and then I started like seeing that like, people make games from it, and I was like, oh, like that's kind of actually cool. Like you could just make your own stuff on there. And then I just got really deep into it. I just like, and this is more on the recent side where it's just like I just started playing more and more and more, and it's like the more that like I'm not even playing at all. Like I'm just making stuff on there now. Like it's just a way to make a story or to tell a story. And what's funny is like a lot of it isn't even, you don't have to be violent. You don't have to have any of that stuff. Like they just provide like, I looked the other day when I was like explaining this to someone else, but there's like at least like 90,000 like community made mods for it. So it's like, we're talking like decade of like, one of the mods that I was kind of laughing about was that they have the Chinese like spy balloon. Like, so, they just make whatever. So it's like you can add food, like restaurants. So I thought it was really cool. So initially I just went in and was putting things together. I made like a sort of like a gallery, and I put like 3D works in there and kind of like experienced it. And then I was like, I wanted to maybe take the art out of that world and take that and put it into this world, I guess, in like a different sort of way.
So, and then the Machinima stuff was separate as an interest?
For a while, yeah, I think.
How did you get into Machinima? Because it seems like the game came separate and then you combine these two interests.
Yeah, it was, a lot of it was, I'm trying to think, like a lot of it was, I'd seen John Raffman. At Otis, there was just so many artist talks that they'd bring in someone who was having a show like in the area or something, and then they would come and make a lecture. So there was like a couple artists that came in, and they were just digital artists. And one of them was like, I was so inspired by it because it was just like, I don't have a studio. I just have a laptop. This is the work that I make. And I found it just really inspirational that it was just like, it was an installation of like, he just videotaped himself playing video games, and then he had plants, and then incense, and then fans, and then it was a sculpture.
That's really interesting, man. I mean, this is like, it's sometimes it's hard to get into someone else's practice when it's so outside of your own space. We barely talked about painting, so I'm sorry. What do you think about, like, what's your, do you still paint or no?
Yes.
Is that still the main thrust of your work, or are you more into this like machinima stuff now?
It's kind of funny because it's like there's some people that have no idea that I make video art.
Yeah.
And it's just all like painting, and that's what they're interested in, or that's what their gallery can support.
Yeah.
It's like
that's the only thing I've seen,
right?
at your studio.
Yeah. And yeah, like my studio was mostly like a place to kick off a lot of painterly work and play with colors and that sort of thing. But I work on raw canvas with natural colors. Like that's just what I studied. I studied like how to make your own pigments, how to.
So this is oil, or?
Yeah, anything like that. Like make your own watercolors, make your own oil, make your own acrylic, make your own inks. So I took a couple workshops. I taught a couple workshops.
You're not accidentally poisoning yourself though, right? Like with the cadmium and shit?
I hope not. Sometimes I think it's just don't breathe in. I think that's what they've told me.
Don't paint it on your arm either.
Yeah, and don't get it on yourself.
Yeah, because it seeps into you. Well, cool, man. Anything else that I forgot to ask you, maybe that you wanted to say that I didn't get to bring out of you? Because I'm not always great at interviewing.
No, this was good.
All right.
I'm trying to think. Is there
anything that we should know about Machinima or Armada that you want people to know on the way out?
I think, Machinima or just video art. I think video art is interesting. It's very interesting. I think it's that is becoming like an emerging media. I think as like a new genre. People tend to call it that sort of thing. I think it's really interesting. I think it's more than meets the eye. I think with a lot of like video games and stuff, it is like for a lot of people they just see their kid or something like playing Minecraft for hours or something. I think to remove it from like a weird like sort of like cathartic entertainment space is it's interesting. I would like to connect with more people that do that.
Well, I mean, I think it's from my standpoint, I'm a decade older than you, so generationally, I remember when video games were not cool, or like they were nerdy, or they were like too expensive and stuff like that. So I'm actually I think this is like pixel art or ASCII art. It's one of those things that kind of like takes off. It's its own niche. People still love it. Like I still like ASCII. And if you see if it's used properly, like if it's used in an art context and it works, I mean, who's gonna be like, no, it's ASCII art. It's not fine art. Right. That's not. Those aren't the rules of postmodernism. So I mean, just based on what you said, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people growing into it. I mean, think of the kids that are 10 years younger than you.
That's true.
Who like don't know a world without. Where they didn't even know what 16-bit is,
right? Right.
What 64-bit or anything like that, like N64 is like janky to them.
Yeah.
Whereas like to me, every time something comes out, I'm like, it's not Pong,
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say it's pretty hopeful in terms of that. Like I feel like I just learned about a whole new genre that I don't know about. That's probably gonna blow up eventually. I mean. There have to be other artists they're interested in. I know artists that make work from like when that has to do with like, the domestic from when I was a kid, like things like old Windows icons and shit like that, like vaporwave.
Yeah.
It's a whole genre that comes from my generation of like people that, are nostalgic. It's like a nostalgic wave,
Yeah.
But anyway. Well, thank you for being on the show, man. Where can people find you that you do want to be found?
Ooh, yeah. You can look me up at yeltsinpenado.net. You can always find my website, and then my YouTube's on there too.
And your Instagram?
My Instagram is at TSM_TSM_.
Why is that? What does the TSM stand for?
Oh yeah, I play with music every now and then, like sound, and I had like started like a kind of like a solo like music kind of thing, and then I started that Instagram for it.
Semiotic medley.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, I still kind of jam and do that sort of thing, but I just gravitated towards like video art for whatever reason, and then that's just kind of like where that account went.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of kept the name. I thought it was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of interesting.
That's how I know you.
Yeah.
I didn't even know your last name until. I mean, I know it because Penado. Penado is just like such a rough Spanish last name, dude. Like shamed.
Yeah.
But
it's supposed to be Italian. I think that's like the lineage or something. It's supposed to mean Potter.
Potter,
like
Penado.
That. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't remember all of my Italian like nuance words. Like Potter's a very specific one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back next week with another artist with another topic that may or may not be art related. And thanks a lot, man.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.